I always say one of the worst things my parents ever did was introduce me to quail hunting, only to watch the numbers plummet to where I couldn't get to do it anymore. So it was like showing me one of the greatest sports in hunting, and then just to watch it go away and not get to enjoy it anymore. Well, I know where there's 4. Our family farm right now. We saw 8 early. I don't
Down
know
to 4 birds,
broke up, but there's 4 of them. 3 bobs and a hen.
That's probably not good.
For me, I got into hunting not for white-tailed deer or wild turkey, but it was the small game. It was squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, and most importantly, it was quail hunting.
It all goes down a little ways, and then there's another one that peels off and then goes angled.
That's what my grandpa on my mother's side, that's what he was passionate about. And sometimes that wasn't even, at a young age, that wasn't even old enough to carry a gun. It was just walking around with him and throwing rocks in the creek. Using Grandpa's gun, we've only walked half a mile, but I can tell why he carried this gun, because it's so light. Grandpa's gun, Dad's vest. Kyle and Frank both, they work with the Missouri Department of Conservation, do a lot of work, really interesting work with quail numbers and quail populations in Missouri.
Been in the conservation field since '95, so 22 years of managing public lands, basically.
I manage public land, much like Kyle. Quail is a passion of mine. I grew up hunting quail. My dad, I think it's a common theme among bird hunters, is most of us grew up in it.
Quail roost right here. You can see right here around these little saplings, this little plum thicket. You can see where there's a couple of them roosted here. Looks pretty fresh too.
Oh.
You know, growing up, my dad was a quail hunter, so that's all I knew until I was out of high school.
Quail for me is always about, that's one of the quickest ways, I believe, to get people in the outdoors. Watching the dog run around and kind of the laughing and the kidding each other, that's what got me hooked on the outdoors.
These dogs live for this. I mean, you can see it in their face. This is what they wait for all year, you know.
We're going to jump over and get this little draw here. Yeah, where does it start?
The interaction with the dogs is a big part of it. Just when things go right, you know, seeing the dogs point and the explosion of the flush. It's a sight and sound you'll never forget. It's so quick and instantaneous and a very specific sound.
Isn't that cool?
Just watching those dogs just turn into statues.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things that's lost. Like, people
right.
forget how amazing that rush is. The last time I quail hunted in Missouri, maybe over 10 or 15 years ago.
You know, in Missouri, we've got quail on a lot of our public lands, but the quail have certainly declined significantly over the last 30, 40 years.
Go, come on. You know, when I was a kid, we rarely hunted public land. Places that my dad grew up hunting were, you know, pastures. They were mostly broom sedge pastures. They were woodlands where they had been cut over. We're still young then, growing up into blue stem grasses and small saplings. Quail did very well. So the whole landscape has changed.
Now we have smaller pieces of habitat, little islands of habitat. Well, that concentrates the predators that are remaining. It all goes back to habitat. If all of the whole county was a useful quail habitat, usable space like it was back in the 1940s or 50s, we'd have a lot more quail. Frank Longcarriage and myself, we started a research project a few years ago, and we're finding out that we can produce a lot more quail on these native landscapes, stuff that was been here for 10,000 years, than where we're trying to manipulate it with food plots and do all this work that's a lot more expensive.
What we're focused on changing is changing what we can control, and that's the public land management.
On the public land, we have the ability to manipulate the landscape the way we need to favor quail better.
While we can control on ourselves, we hope to affect change on that small level. We also hope to affect change on a department-wide scale. If we can change public land management on a statewide scale, we've done something there.
I'm kind of at the age, I'm 30 years old, and I've watched the quail population drop, and I'm looking ahead and I'm going, 30 years from now, if we keep this trend, we're not going to have any. Now it's time to start fighting back.